Yo, Scrawny with the skinny, back for the fantasy land. Yeah, I missed a couple. Really tough turnaround between the play-in and the group stage with Media Day in Kato, etc. And then when I came home from Katowice for the playoffs, I was sicker than a dog. I would have been coughing and I would have sounded like shit. So I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like giving you guys the juice. And honestly, I saved you because my read on the playoffs was very bad. For the group stage, I went in on Navi as opposed to Spirit. I thought that I had a good read of them after the good showing from the Blast groups at the start of the year. I still have faith in Navi as a team, but these two particular players in Alexi and Emed just were not worth your money. And also, Cloud9 ended up shitting the bed, so Perfecto gave me just a few negative points. At least the boosters kept me in there. 4 points for the group stage. Yikes. I went in on G2 instead of FaZe. Based on their game versus Heroic, I thought that they were starting to gear up for playoffs. I thought they would have kind of like the FaZe situation where they got their little buff going for the stage itself, but Nico ends up posting like a mid 0.85 or something rating. Absolutely horrendous for the G2 pickers. But luckily, I wasn't the only one. That's right. Me and Maniac had the exact same team, so whatever he's smoking, I'm on too, and at least I had good company at the bottom of the leaderboard, where we are now placed 17th. But luckily, between 17th and 10th, which is where you always want to be, there's like 4 points. It's the start of the season. I'm not sweating it. Is what it is. What's crazy though, Bleh, my guy, 68 points 4 games in. He's ranked 11th in the world. I think he'll lose this lead. Slowly, we will chip away at him. But if he keeps this up, I mean, this is insanity. So shout out Bleh one time. We're using the majors.im website to do some RMR predictions. Obviously, it's really tough to predict RMRs all the way through, but there's a few significant, I think, results or head-to-heads here that is worth going through this just to kind of get a read for which teams you want to draft. All right. There's a few results that I'll talk about, but we'll just go through it quickly. FaZe over 9 Pandas, VP over Saw, Navi over Koi. I think Saw and Koi, the Portuguese and the Spanish teams, are two to keep your eyes on. I think that they've got quite a few RMRs under their belt. They've got majors under their belt for the Movistar / Koi guys. And I just think they shouldn't be written off. All right? That's two teams that, like, give an extra little bit of consideration, dive into their players, and maybe you end up drafting one guy from them if you are looking for a cheaper pick. G2 over ITB, Eternal Fire over NiP, Omcall over Enterprise. Enterprise is a team I don't know too much about, but I'm willing to write off entirely. That's a 0-3 team in my eyes. Kind of, actually, as crazy as it sounds, alongside maybe Fnatic or possibly 3D Max. Those are the 3 teams I'm actually putting at the bottom of this board. ITB and ITB and BetBoom just slightly ahead of them. And overall, Ninjas in Pajamas as well are still in a place that I just simply don't believe in. So there's that. Round 2, I think FaZe beats Falcons, VP over BetBoom, Navi over Amcal. I think Navi actually have a very good second round. Eternal Fire over G2 is an upset. Maybe, in your eyes, depends on how much you consider Eternal Fire to be ranked or rated at the moment. But I think that G2 still, if it's not Monacy, the game is a loss. They got to figure out what's going on. Hunter is still going down in rating. Nico just had a horrible playoff stage. Hooksy continues to just be a bit of an anchor. So I'm going to take Eternal Fire. I think that Woxic has kind of caught up to Wacadia, and between Xantares, Wacadia, and Woxic, you've got a very solid 3-player core, a more solid and reliable 3-player core than that of G2. 3D Max get the win over Fnatic just because it's a recent head-to-head that I'll give them again. 9 Pandas over Enterprise. Like I said, Saw and Koi, this is where you see me rating them as they should beat NiP and ITB, 2 teams who, for namesake, I feel like, kind of get maybe more credit than they deserve. FaZe will beat Eternal Fire to go through 3-0, and Navi, I've got them over VP. I think that we saw some cracks from Virtus Pro at the Katowice play-in. I think the results in their Cloud9 game were so lopsided that that's a red flag for me. And additionally, just specifically for fantasy, they're very inflated in terms of price at the moment. So it's not even that I'm writing off VP entirely. I think they could still win that series versus Navi for sure, but it's just with the price that they come in at, I'm going to just say Navi in this one. I think that, again, Groups was looking good for Navi. They started the year well. They were on the brink of going further in Katowice. And yeah, still rating Navi, even if in the group stage, compared to Spirit, they did let me down. Falcons over Koi. G2 get an easy game. Saw will beat Amcal. Bet Boom over 9 Pandas, but it's domestic, you never know. Ninjas eliminate Fnatic. ITB eliminate Enterprise. VP over G2 in the 2-1s. Eternal Fire over Bet Boom. Falcons over Saw. That's where I think these favorites start, getting through to the major itself. VP, Eternal Fire, Falcons, G2, interchangeably, the 4 of those teams. They'll beat whoever's in front of them at this point. We're cutting off the fat. I'll take Koi over Ninjas in Pajamas. Again, shout out to the Koi/Saw boys. ITB over Amcal. I don't know what's going on at this point. We're so deep in the rounds. None of these matchups may even happen, so what's the point of continuing on? You know my thoughts. So let me hit you with the draft, all right? This draft, to me, hinges on, at the end of it, we're going to be starting with FaZe, okay? So FaZe at the moment are banking on a very good implementation of Frozen, and I think that Frozen has been taking roles that actually put him in a more aggressive place than he was playing on Mouse. So he's getting good rating, man. He's starting to outshine Rops, who is just a bit more passive, and versus easier opponents, I feel like Frozen's going to be getting into the engagements, and I think he's going to be trading out Rain pretty effectively. All of that hinges on Rain not just scooping up the rating himself, which, hot and cold, man. He had a pretty bad map versus Spirit on the big stage. He also had pretty dominant games versus Maus on the big stage. So with Rain, you never know. With Rain, you never know. I think also shout out Brokey. He's been looking good too. Op is in a better place. So is Brokey. But to me, FaZe is the must. Yeah, okay, in the past, FaZe have maybe struggled at RMRs or struggled at majors, but I just think, you'd be foolish not to go for a double FaZe pick when 4 out of the 5 FaZe players are in the 5 most picked players for this event. You get FaZe, and then your difference will be in the teams that you follow up with. In my eyes, that's what I'm throwing out for this RMR. So, when it comes to FaZe, again, I think Kerrigan at this price will open up the possibilities for other drafts, and seeing as he's part of a team that I expect to dominate, it's a classic, you know the game. So the choice comes down to which FaZe player, and honestly, with how hot he's playing at the moment, you guys know that I rated Frozen even back on Mouse, I'm gonna do it. Hit him with the Frozen Kerrigan, just like we had for group stage. I think it's a good duo. I think that Frozen is kind of the hottest prospect on FaZe right now, right? Sky's the limit for this guy, man. We waited a long time for it, so let's tap into it, shall we? Now, beyond FaZe, right, we kind of fall into, in my opinion, Navi versus Virtus.pro. In the Majors Predictor, I went Navi over VP, but I do think that both these teams are very genuine contenders to go 3-0 and just skate through into the Major. But it's the price point of Virtus.pro that kind of deters me, man. I mean, Norbert is now sitting at $211,000, and that's where I draw the line. I love this new Norbert arc, man. I've been trying to milk it for all it's worth. I can't pay $211K for Norbert. Fame at 208 is a little more appetizing. Mir, I just don't think slots into this system very well, so he's not a good pick for VP at all. Flit and Jame, quite expensive. Jame at 218, can't honestly ignore it. Jame at 218 is so tantalizing, but me personally, if I go in at Jame at 218, I'm struggling to find a formula of other players that kind of fit the price point. So I'm looking at Navi, to be honest. And again, G2 is great if you're going Monacy, but 233, nah, man. What I like is this middle-of-the-pack Navi selection, right? Now, at the current moment with Navi, over the last month, we've got Wonderful as a kind of, a head above the rest, and then JL, Bit, and Ime all about the same ratings, 1.12 to 1.11. I went in on Ime and Alexi B. Now, Alexi is still struggling behind the rest of the team, but I love Alexi's calls. I love Alexi's strategy. I honestly think they kind of threw the veto versus Spirit when they played Mirage as map 3. Remember that this Navi team is the only team to take a map off Spirit at Katowice. So rate them, all right? But maybe don't draft Alexi. That's the difference I'm going to make this time around. I'm not going to draft Alexi, and I'm not going to draft Ime because I do think that he actually is still a little hit or miss. What I'm going to do is go for Bit and JL. I'm going to double FaZe, double Navi. You can't really double VP because of the affordability issue. And having 2 players from 2 significant teams that I do believe will skate through potentially as 3-0, definitely 3-1 at worst, I feel comfortable with this. But this draft hinges on one man, All right, 177,000, you can see it, that's our remaining budget. There are 3 players that I want to shout out for your budget picks. Now, I'm going to go ahead, pick mine, get the draft out of the way, and then we'll revisit this concept. So at 177, the key to this puzzle, it's Thomas. $176,000 for your boy Thomas of Into the Breach. The UK's, well, I was going to say number 1, but let's be real, we've got Messi back in action. This is the lock-in, dude. Corn Dogs, Frozen, Kerrigan, Bit, JL, and Thomas. You get a good middle of the pack with Navi, and Bit, I mean, we know what he can do, bro. Sky's the limit. He could end up being like top 5 rated player at the RMR, no doubt. Frozen is provably the best player at the moment in this draft for me, and JL is worth his money. Navi have a good run. Navi have good opposition. Navi have a good unit at the moment, and I think that will bode well for them. So double phase, double Navi, and your boy, Thomas. Now, like I was saying, there's 3 players that I want to shout out from 3 separate teams if you're looking for good price points, all right? Thomas, to me, is actually the second best choice of the 3. I'm going a little bit riskier. The number 1 choice for affordability picks, in my mind, is nobody other than Davy G from Koi, all right? I think Koi, when you look at their matches in the last month, on the run to the RMR, they've got a victory online over Spirit with Donk, and a victory over Heroic, who we ended up knowing played quite well in Katowice. Those 2 wins, quite significant. It gets detracted by the loss to X Thunderflash, which is now Enterprise, who I've written off entirely 0-3. So let's ignore that result, okay? I'm choosing not to put too much stock in that result because I can. And then they went on to beat Para. They've got some, domestic head-to-head versus Saw, and that game is super close. But in terms of, again, players, I'm talking about Davy G because even over the last 3 months, we're talking about somebody with a 1.03 rating at 184,000 for the draft. He's just a better pick than Thomas because, again, I think that there is a chance that he gets into the mix with Mopaz and Stododo in the top 3. I don't think Thomas is going to be taking over maps like Davy G might. But, again, since this is your eco pick, I went beyond and went as eco as possible. Thomas is 176. 176 for Thomas feels like such a steal when he, in the last month, is playing right alongside Rollin at the bottom side of this team, right? 1.01 rating. If you're breaking even at a 1.01, I'm not upset about it. Their games, of course, they've got a few more losses than Koi. As a team, I believe more in Koi than I do Into the Breach. But as an individual, again, I think that they should be able to dodge too hard of losses. And if we go to Thomas specifically, well, look at some of his match performances. I think there's things here for him to be proud about. A 1.11 versus Preezy on a map, 1.6 over Metasport. We get down here into Bleed. Yeah, there's some Buns ratings mixed in every once in a while, but great game versus Guild Eagles. You know, I'm picking and choosing what I want to see here for sure. I just think that, again, at 176, it frees up so many points, bro. Look at the rest of this draft, right? The double Navi, including Bit and JL plus Frozen. Ooh, it's getting me all excited. So I still think running the Thomas risk is worth it. And then thirdly, just because I want to include him, I want to shout out from Amcal Crad one time. I think that Crad back on fours was actually one of my sleeper picks, and I liked drafting him when he was playing with fours and Zorte, like the Jerry, Zorte, Crad. That trio, I think, back at the Paris RMR was definitely worth its weight, considering his price point is 189, a little bit more expensive than Davy G. If you don't go as heavy as I did on your other teams, then I think maybe consider Crad. It's just, I don't know enough about Amcal. I haven't watched them too much, but they do seem to have this star in Icy who could end up just kind of taking over a few games and possibly giving Crad some easy runway to earn you some points. So 3 eco picks, Davy G, Thomas, Crad, in that order. In my mind, safest being Davy G, but you know what we want. Frozen, Kerrigan, Bit, JL, Thomas. Y'all watching Fantasyland. Thank you guys for watching. New video soon for RMRB because there's a lot of Counter-Strike, and I'm at home digging through the numbers. See you guys soon.